You've been walking, maybe every day. Maybe you've added some light weights, or gone to the pool, or picked up gardening. You're doing what everyone told you to do after 65. Stay active, keep moving, don't slow down. And yet something is quietly happening that walking doesn't fix. Getting out of a low chair takes an extra second longer than it used to. Carrying groceries feels heavier than the number on the receipt suggests. Standing on one leg while pulling on a sock has become a small negotiation with gravity that it never used to be. Here is what nobody explains clearly. Walking is good for you, but there is one specific thing your body loses after 65, rapidly, silently, and independently of how many steps you take, that walking simply cannot replace. And the research showing exactly how to preserve it has been sitting in medical journals for over 30 years, mostly ignored by mainstream advice for older adults. By the end of this video, you're going to understand which specific tissue in your body is disappearing while you walk, why walking doesn't touch it, and the 4-minute routine that decades of research show can preserve and even restore it at any age. Stay with me, because the mechanism is simpler than you think, and the fix takes less time than making a cup of tea. Let's start with what you've been told. Stay active, get your steps in, walk more, add some light resistance if you feel up to it. Consistency matters more than intensity. Any movement is better than no movement. Every one of these statements is true, and every one of them is dangerously incomplete for someone over 65, because movement is not one thing. Your body is not a single system that responds equally to every kind of activity. There are specific tissues in your body that respond only to specific inputs, and if you don't provide those inputs, those tissues shrink and disappear regardless of how much you're moving otherwise. Walking, for all its cardiovascular benefit, sends one signal to your body. It tells your heart, your lungs, and your slow endurance muscle fibers to keep functioning. It tells your circulatory system to stay open, your metabolism to keep burning fuel steadily, and your bones to stay loaded through moderate impact. But there is an entirely different category of tissue in your body that hears none of that signal. It sits there, silent, unstimulated, and slowly vanishing, because the one input it needs is not being delivered by any amount of walking you can do. Something else is determining how strong you actually are at 70, 80, and beyond. And that something else is what almost nobody in mainstream health advice for older adults explains to you. In 1990, Maria Fiat-Arone and her colleagues at Tufts University published a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association that should have permanently changed how we talk about aging and exercise. It didn't. Her team recruited a group of frail nursing home residents. Average age, 90. Some were in their late 90s. Many had been sedentary for years. Some could barely rise from a chair without assistance. Fiat-Arone did not put them on a walking program. She did not prescribe cardio, yoga, or gentle movement. She put them on 8 weeks of brief, high-tension resistance work. A few focused sets, 2 to 3 times per week. Not long sessions, not exhausting. Just intense enough to force their remaining muscle fibers to actually work. The results were staggering. Their muscle strength increased by an average of 174%. Their walking speed improved. Their ability to climb stairs improved. 2 of the participants no longer needed their canes. Read that again. 90-year-olds, 8 weeks, a near tripling of muscle strength. Later research expanded this considerably. A landmark review in the journal Sports Medicine found that adults over 60 who engaged in brief high-tension resistance training, total volume as low as 20 minutes per week, showed measurable increases in the specific type of muscle fiber that walking, cardio, and general movement cannot preserve. Which means the strength you're losing right now isn't because you're not moving enough. It's because you're not delivering the specific signal that one particular tissue in your body requires. And that signal takes about 4 minutes to deliver, done correctly. Stay with me. This is the part that changes everything. Inside every muscle in your body, there are 2 broad categories of fiber, Type 1 fibers, sometimes called slow twitch, are your endurance fibers. They fire during walking, standing, gardening, swimming, and any sustained low-intensity activity. They resist fatigue extremely well. They keep you upright and moving through your day. Type 2 fibers, fast twitch, are your power fibers. They fire when you need to produce force quickly or under load. Standing up from a low chair, catching yourself when you stumble, lifting something heavy off the floor, sprinting, however briefly, to catch a bus or grab a falling grandchild. Here is the biological reality that mainstream advice for older adults leaves out entirely. After the age of 30, you begin losing type 2 fibers at a much faster rate than type 1. By 65, you have typically lost between 30 and 40% of them. By 75, closer to 50%. And this loss is not random or inevitable. It is directly caused by disuse. Type 2 fibers are recruited only when your muscle is placed under high tension, not high volume, not long duration, high tension, something heavy, something held, something slow and loaded. Walking never produces this signal. Cardio never produces this signal. Gentle stretching never produces this signal. And here is the trap. As those fibers shrink, you feel weaker, which makes you naturally choose lower tension activities. You walk more. You lift less. You avoid the heavy grocery bag. You take the elevator. Each accommodation protects you from strain in the short term and accelerates type 2 fiber loss in the long term. The tissue that literally determines whether you can stand up unassisted at 80 is fading quietly while you do everything mainstream advice told you was enough. This is the cycle most adults over 65 are living inside, not because they aren't moving, because the specific signal their power tissue needs was never being delivered, and no amount of walking, however consistent, can substitute for it. Stay with me. The routine is coming, and it's simpler than everything I just described. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Margaret. 68, retired school teacher, walks 2 miles most mornings, plays with her grandchildren on weekends. By any reasonable measure, active. Her doctor commended her consistency at every checkup. But over the last 2 years, she noticed things. Getting up from the garden required a hand on her knee. Lifting the 10-pound bag of birdseed out of the car had become awkward. She'd tripped on a curb and caught herself, but the catch felt slower than it used to. A fraction of a second where her leg didn't quite respond the way she expected it to. Margaret assumed this was aging. Her doctor confirmed it. She was told to keep walking and stay positive. What Margaret didn't know, what nobody told her, was that her cardiovascular health was excellent, but the specific muscle tissue responsible for that missed step, that tired lift, that hand on the knee, had been disappearing for over a decade while she walked. Her endurance was intact. Her power was leaving. So what does actually preserving this tissue look like? The research points clearly to one category of intervention: brief high-tension work. Not cardio, not walking, not general movement. Specifically, short bouts of loaded muscle contraction, either against your own body weight held under tension or against a light external resistance held slowly. A meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, reviewing over 100 studies on resistance training in older adults, found that a total of 10 to 15 minutes of high-tension work per week, distributed across 2 or 3 brief sessions, produced measurable increases in type 2 fiber mass and function in participants aged 65 through 92. Same starting age, same starting condition. In every trial, the group that added brief high-tension work retained or gained strength. The control group, which continued walking, gentle movement, or standard activity, continued to decline. Same population, same time frame, dramatically different outcomes. Because one group delivered the specific signal their power tissue required, the other didn't. Here is what the routine actually looks like in practice, and I want you to notice. Immediately, how different this feels from anything you've been told to do before. Here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to do fast repetitions. You're not going to add cardio to this. You're not going to add stretching. You're not going to try to break a sweat. All of those inputs recruit the wrong fiber type or dilute the signal you're actually trying to send. Here's what you are going to do. 4 movements, each one held or performed slowly under tension. Total time, around 4 minutes. The first is a wall-supported chair hold. Stand with your back against a wall, feet about a foot forward, and slide down until your knees are bent at whatever angle feels challenging but sustainable. Hold that position for 30 seconds. Not longer, not shorter. The tension in your thighs is the signal. That discomfort is your type 2 fibers being recruited for the first time in possibly years. Rest 20 seconds. Repeat once. What you're training here is the exact tissue responsible for standing up unassisted at 80. The second is a slow calf raise. Standing near a countertop for balance, rise onto the balls of your feet over a count of 3 seconds. Hold at the top for 2 seconds. Lower over 3 seconds. Do this 8 times. The slowness is the entire point. Fast reps recruit endurance fibers. Slow loaded reps recruit power fibers. The third is a grip hold. Hold something heavy in each hand, a filled water jug, a dumbbell, a full grocery bag, and simply stand still for 30 seconds. Do not walk with it. Do not swing it. Just stand and hold. Grip strength after 65 is one of the single most accurate predictors of longevity in the entire scientific literature, and it responds to this exact input. The fourth is a slow chair descent. Stand in front of a sturdy chair. Lower yourself into it over a count of 5 seconds, as slowly and controlled as you can manage. Stand back up normally. Repeat 5 times. The slow lowering, the eccentric phase, is where type 2 fiber recruitment peaks. This is not a workout. This takes 4 minutes. You do it 3 times a week. The goal isn't fatigue. The goal is signal, telling the tissue that determines your independence at 80 that it is still needed. Every session is a message. Miss enough of them and the tissue leaves. Here's the mistake almost everyone over 65 makes. They double down on the walking. When they feel weaker, they walk more. When they feel stiffer, they walk longer. When their doctor tells them to stay active, they interpret that as increased volume of the same activity they've always done. And the walking does help, cardiovascularly, metabolically, mentally. But it does nothing to address the tissue that is actually determining their strength trajectory. It's like keeping your car's fuel tank full while the transmission slowly fails. Everything looks maintained from the outside. Nothing that determines whether the car actually moves is being addressed. The reason walking is overprescribed for older adults is straightforward. It's low risk, easy to communicate, and requires no equipment. But easy to communicate is not the same as biologically sufficient. Type 2 fibers do not care that walking is easier to prescribe. They respond only to tension. And you have almost certainly been receiving no meaningful tension signal for years. But you just sat through the real explanation, which means you now know something most people over 65, and, honestly, many of the doctors advising them have never had explained clearly. Go back to that moment I described at the beginning. The extra second getting out of the chair, the heavier grocery bag, the slower reaction when you almost lost your balance. You now know that moment isn't aging. It's a specific tissue that has been shrinking silently while you did everything the mainstream told you was enough. It's a signal problem, not a decline problem. You are not too old for this to change. Fiatarone's own research documented dramatic strength gains in adults in their 90s. The tissue responds at every age. It just needs to receive the input it was designed for. Brief, tension-based, deliberate. Your body was not built to weaken by default after 65. It was built with a strength system that responds to demand. You just need to give it 4 minutes. If this gave you something your last checkup didn't, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we break down the real biology behind how your body ages, why it moves the way it moves, and exactly what the science says to do about it, in minutes a day, not hours. The mechanism is always simpler than the marketing around it. You just have to know where to look.